What would you do if all the money in the world couldn't save the person you love most? If you enjoyed this story, please like, share, and subscribe. We'd love to know where you're watching from because we love hearing from you. The hospital room was cold and white, like the inside of a freezer. Machines beeped and hummed all around, making strange music that nobody wanted to hear. In the middle of all those machines lay a boy named Oliver, and he was dying. Oliver was only 10 years old. He had brown hair that used to bounce when he ran, and green eyes that used to sparkle when he laughed. But now his hair lay flat against the pillow, and his eyes were closed. He hadn't opened them in 3 days. His father, Mr. Harrison, stood by the window. He was a very rich man. He owned tall buildings that touched the clouds. He had fancy cars that cost more than most people's houses. His clothes were perfectly ironed, and his shoes shined like mirrors. But right now, none of that mattered. His hands shook as he stared out at the city below. "Please," Mr. Harrison whispered to the doctor, "there must be something, anything. I'll pay whatever it costs." The doctor was a kind woman with tired eyes. Her name was Dr. Chun, and she had tried everything she knew. "Mr. Harrison," she said softly, "we've done every test. We've tried every medicine. Oliver's heart is just too weak. I'm so very sorry." Mr. Harrison's wife, Mrs. Harrison, sat in a chair next to Oliver's bed. She held her son's small hand in both of hers. Tears rolled down her cheeks like tiny rivers. She didn't try to wipe them away anymore. She had been crying for so long that she had run out of energy. "My baby," she whispered. "My sweet, sweet baby." Oliver's little sister, Emma, stood in the corner. She was only 7 years old, and she didn't really understand what was happening. All she knew was that her big brother, who used to play hide and seek with her, wasn't playing anymore. He just slept and never woke up. "Mommy," Emma said in a small voice, "when will Oliver wake up and play with me?" Mrs. Harrison couldn't answer. She just cried harder. The room felt heavy, like the air itself was sad. Outside the window, the sun was setting, painting the sky orange and pink. It was beautiful, but nobody in that room could see beauty anymore. All they could see was Oliver, getting smaller and quieter with each passing hour. Mr. Harrison had called every famous doctor in the world. He had flown in specialists from other countries. He had begged. He had pleaded. He had thrown money at the problem like it was water. But money couldn't buy what Oliver needed. Money couldn't make his heart strong again. The machines kept beeping, but the beeps were getting slower, quieter, like Oliver was slowly fading away, becoming more ghost than boy. That's when something strange happened. The door to the hospital room opened. Everyone looked up, expecting another doctor or nurse. But it wasn't a doctor. It wasn't a nurse. It was a girl. She looked about 12 years old. Her dress was old and had patches sewn onto it. Her feet were bare and dusty, like she had walked a very long way. Her hair was messy and tangled. She carried nothing except a small brass cup that looked ancient and dented. "Who are you?" Mr. Harrison demanded. His voice was sharp and angry. "How did you get in here? This is a private room." The girl didn't look scared. She looked calm, like she belonged there even though she clearly didn't. Her eyes were the strangest color, somewhere between gray and blue, like storm clouds with light peeking through. "My name is Grace," the girl said quietly. "I heard about your son." "Get out," Mr. Harrison shouted. Security should have stopped her. How did a poor, dirty girl get past all the guards and locked doors? It made no sense. But Grace didn't move. She just stood there, holding her brass cup, looking at Oliver with sad, kind eyes. "Please," Grace said, "let me try to help him." Dr. Chin stepped forward. "Young lady, I don't know how you got in here, but you need to leave. This boy is very sick, and we can't have unauthorized people in this room." "I can help," Grace said again. Her voice was soft but somehow strong, like a whisper that could move mountains. Mrs. Harrison looked up from Oliver's bedside. Something in the girl's eyes made her pause. Maybe it was hope. Maybe it was desperation. Maybe it was just that a mother whose child is dying will grab onto anything, even something that makes no sense. "Wait," Mrs. Harrison said. Let her speak. Mr. Harrison turned to his wife like she had lost her mind. Margaret, she's just a child, a street urchin. Look at her. But Mrs. Harrison was looking at Grace, really looking, and what she saw was something she couldn't explain. The girl glowed somehow, not with light exactly, but with something else, something peaceful. What do you want to do? Mrs. Harrison asked. Grace walked slowly to Oliver's bed. Her bare feet made no sound on the cold hospital floor. She lifted the brass cup. I have holy water, Grace said simply, from a sacred spring far from here. If you let me pour it on his forehead and pray, he might wake up. The room went silent, except for the beeping machines. Dr. Chin shook her head. That's impossible. Water can't cure what's wrong with this child. His heart is failing. He needs medicine, not superstition. Medicine hasn't worked, Grace said, not rudely, just truthfully. Mr. Harrison felt torn. Part of him wanted to throw this strange girl out of the room. She represented everything his logical, business mind rejected. You couldn't buy results with faith. You bought them with money and science and experts. But another part of him, a part he had forgotten existed, whispered something different. What if there was more to the world than what he could see and measure and purchase? If you let me try, Grace said, and it doesn't work, I'll leave quietly. But if it does work... She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. Little Emma walked over to Grace. She looked up at the mysterious girl with wide, curious eyes. Will you make my brother better? She asked. Grace knelt down, so she was eye level with Emma. I'll try my very best, she promised. Emma took Grace's hand. Okay, she said. I believe you. And somehow, in that moment, that was enough. Mrs. Harrison stood up. Do it, she said firmly. Try. Mr. Harrison opened his mouth to argue, then closed it. He looked at his dying son, at his crying wife, at his confused daughter, and at this barefoot girl who had appeared like magic. And he realized he had nothing left to lose. Fine, he said, his voice breaking. But if this is some kind of trick... It's not a trick, Grace said quietly. It's faith. She lifted the brass cup over Oliver's head. The water inside caught the last rays of sunset from the window, making it shimmer like liquid gold. Everyone in the room held their breath, and Grace began to pour. The water fell in slow motion, drop by drop. It touched Oliver's forehead, and something in the room changed. The air felt different, like right before a thunderstorm when everything gets quiet and still. The water ran down the sides of his face, over his closed eyes, past his pale cheeks. Grace closed her eyes and began to whisper. Her lips moved, but the words were so soft that nobody could hear them. Her hand holding the cup was steady. Even though she was just a young girl, the last drops of water fell onto Oliver's skin and disappeared, soaking into him like rain into thirsty ground. For a long moment, nothing happened. The machines kept beeping their slow, sad song. Oliver lay still as a statue. Mr. Harrison's jaw was tight, and his fists were clenched. He wanted to believe, but his mind told him this was foolish. Dr. Chin watched with her arms crossed, her face showing doubt. Mrs. Harrison's hands were clasped together, so hard her knuckles turned white. Emma held on to Grace's dress, looking up at her brother with big, hopeful eyes. Then the beeping changed. It was small at first. Just one beep that came a tiny bit faster. Then another. The machine monitoring Oliver's heartbeat started to speed up just a little, like an engine that had been cold starting to warm. Dr. Chen's eyes went wide. She stepped closer to the machines, staring at the numbers on the screen. That's not possible, she whispered. The numbers were climbing. Oliver's heart rate, which had been dangerously slow, was getting faster. His blood pressure, which had been dropping for days, started to rise. The oxygen levels in his blood began to improve. What's happening? Mr. Harrison asked, his voice shaking. Grace opened her eyes. She was smiling, but tears ran down her cheeks. Have faith, she said simply. Oliver's fingers twitched. Mrs. Harrison gasped. Did you see that? His hand moved. Everyone crowded closer to the bed. Even Dr. Chin couldn't look away now. She checked the machines again and again, as if she couldn't believe what they were telling her. Oliver's chest began to rise and fall more deeply. Color started creeping back into his cheeks, like someone was painting roses onto his skin. His lips, which had been gray and lifeless, turned pink again. "This is impossible," Dr. Chin breathed. His organs were shutting down. "There's no medical explanation for this." "Maybe there doesn't need to be," Mrs. Harrison said, never taking her eyes off her son. Grace stepped back from the bed. She looked tired now, like the act of pouring that water had taken all her energy. She swayed a little on her feet, and Emma quickly pulled a chair over for her. "Thank you," Grace whispered to the little girl. The room filled with an amazing silence. It wasn't the scary silence from before, when death had been waiting in the corners. This was a different kind of quiet. It was a silence of people witnessing something they couldn't explain, something that made them feel small and large at the same time. Oliver's eyelids fluttered. "Oliver," Mrs. Harrison leaned over her son, her voice breaking with hope and fear mixed together. "Oliver, baby, can you hear me?" The boy's eyes opened slowly, like he was waking from the deepest sleep in the world. He blinked once, twice, 3 times. His green eyes looked confused and foggy, but they were open. They were alive. "Mom!" His voice was scratchy and weak, but it was there. It was real. Mrs. Harrison burst into sobs. She grabbed Oliver and hugged him carefully, afraid he might break, but unable to stop herself. "Oh, my baby, you're awake." Emma squealed with joy and jumped up and down. "Oliver's awake. Oliver's awake." Mr. Harrison stood frozen. His mouth hung open. His eyes filled with tears that he had been holding back for days. The powerful businessman who controlled companies and made decisions that affected thousands of people couldn't move. He couldn't speak. He could only stare at his son, alive and awake, when minutes ago death had been certain. Dr. Chin grabbed Oliver's wrist, checking his pulse with her own fingers, not trusting the machines even though they all showed the same miraculous thing. His pulse was strong, steady, normal. "This is medically impossible," she said again, but this time her voice was filled with wonder instead of doubt. "I've been a doctor for 20 years. I've never seen anything like this." Oliver looked around the room with confused eyes. "What happened? Why am I in the hospital? Why is everyone crying?" "You were very sick, honey," Mrs. Harrison said through her tears. "But you're better now. You're going to be okay." Oliver's gaze landed on Grace. The barefoot girl sat in the chair, holding her empty brass cup. She looked exhausted but peaceful. "Who are you?" Oliver asked. "My name is Grace," she said softly. "I'm just someone who wanted to help." "Did you make me better?" Grace smiled. "No, faith made you better. I was just a person holding the cup." Oliver didn't fully understand, but he smiled back at her. "Thank you," he said. Mr. Harrison finally found his voice. He walked to Grace and dropped to his knees in front of her. This man, who had never bowed to anyone, who had built an empire on pride and power, knelt before a poor girl with dirty feet and a patched dress. "How can I ever repay you?" he asked, his voice choked with emotion. "Name anything. Anything in the world. It's yours." Grace shook her head gently. "I don't want money or things, Mr. Harrison. I just wanted to help your son. That's enough for me. But you save his life. You must want something." Grace thought for a moment. "If you really want to do something," she said quietly, "help other sick children. Children whose parents don't have money for hospitals and doctors. Build a place where they can get care, no matter how poor they are. That would make me happy." Mr. Harrison nodded, tears streaming down his face. "I promise. I swear to you I'll do it. I'll build the biggest children's hospital this city has ever seen, and it will treat every child for free if they need it." "That's good," Grace said, smiling. "That's very good." Dr. Chin was still examining Oliver, running test after test. Everything came back normal. Better than normal, actually. His heart was strong. His breathing was perfect. It was like he had never been sick at all. "I need to call the other doctors," Dr. Chin said, shaking her head in disbelief. "They won't believe this. I don't believe this, and I'm seeing it with my own eyes." Nurses started coming into the room, alerted by the changed readings on the machines at their station. They gasped when they saw Oliver sitting up, talking, looking like a normal, healthy boy instead of the dying child he had been just minutes before. Word spread to the hospital like wildfire. Doctors came from other floors. Everyone wanted to see the miracle boy who had been brought back from death's door by a barefoot girl and holy water. The hospital room became crowded with people. Some were crying. Some were praying. Some just stood in stunned silence. They had all heard about miracles in old stories, but nobody expected to see one with their own eyes. Grace stood up quietly. She clutched her brass cup to her chest and started moving toward the door. "Wait!" Mrs. Harrison called out. "Where are you going?" "Stay with us. Let us take care of you. You look tired and hungry." "I need to go," Grace said softly. "There are others who need help too. But we don't even know where you came from," Mr. Harrison said. "How did you find us? How did you know about Oliver?" Grace's smile was mysterious and kind. "I go where I'm needed. That's all. At least let me get your information," Mr. Harrison insisted, "so I can find you again, so I can thank you properly." "You don't need to find me," Grace said. "Just remember what happened here today. Remember that some things are bigger than money and science. Remember to have faith." Emma ran up and hugged Grace's legs. "Don't go. I want you to stay and play with me and Oliver." Grace knelt down and kissed the top of Emma's head. "You're a sweet girl. Take care of your brother, okay?" "I will," Emma promised. Grace looked one last time at Oliver, who was surrounded by amazed doctors and crying nurses. He caught her eye and waved. She waved back. Then she walked out of the room. Mr. Harrison tried to follow her, but the crowd of people made it hard to move. By the time he pushed through to the hallway, Grace was gone. He ran to the elevator, but it hadn't been called. He checked the stairs, but they were empty. He asked the security guards at every exit, but none of them had seen a barefoot girl leave. It was like she had simply vanished into thin air. Back in the room, Oliver was sitting up fully now, eating soup that a nurse had brought. His color was completely back to normal. He was laughing at something Emma said. The machines around him beeped steadily, showing a strong, healthy heartbeat. Dr. Chin sat down heavily in a chair. She looked at Mrs. Harrison with tears in her eyes. In medical school, they teach us that medicine is science. Facts. Proof. But today, she shook her head. "Today I saw something that has no scientific explanation, and I'm okay with that." Mrs. Harrison squeezed the doctor's hand. "Sometimes miracles happen," she said softly. "Yes," Dr. Chin agreed. "Sometimes they do." The next morning, sunlight poured through the hospital window like liquid gold. Oliver sat up in bed, eating pancakes and asking for more orange juice. The doctors couldn't stop checking him, running test after test, but everything came back perfect. It was as if he had never been sick at all. "I want to go home," Oliver said, syrup on his chin. "I want to play in the backyard and see my dog." Dr. Chin smiled. "Let's keep you one more day for observation, just to be absolutely sure. But after that, yes, you can go home." Mr. Harrison hadn't slept all night. He had sat in a chair beside Oliver's bed, watching his son breathe, afraid that if he closed his eyes, the miracle might disappear. Every rise and fall of Oliver's chest felt like a gift he didn't deserve. When the sun came up, he finally stood and walked to the window. The city stretched out below him. All those buildings he owned, all that money in his bank accounts. Yesterday, he would have said those things made him successful. Today, he knew better. "I made a promise," he said quietly to his wife, to Grace, "and I'm going to keep it." Mrs. Harrison came and stood beside him. "I know you will." That very day, while Oliver rested and played board games with Emma, Mr. Harrison made phone calls. He called architects and builders. He called hospital administrators and children's health experts. He told them all the same thing. "I want to build a hospital, the best children's hospital in the entire state. And I want every sick child to be able to get treatment there, whether their parents have money or not. I don't care what it costs. Make it happen." People thought he had lost his mind. Mr. Harrison was known for being tough in business, for caring about profit and success. But something had changed in him. The man who had once measured everything in dollars now measured things in heartbeats and second chances. Within weeks, construction began. Mr. Harrison bought land on the edge of the city and hired the best builders in the world. He wanted the hospital to be beautiful, with gardens and playrooms and windows that let in lots of light. He wanted sick children to feel hope when they walked through the doors. "What should we call it?" the architect asked. Mr. Harrison thought of the barefoot girl with the brass cup, the girl who had appeared from nowhere and vanished like morning mist. "Call it Grace House," he said, "in memory of someone who taught me what really matters." Oliver recovered so completely that within a month, you couldn't tell he had ever been sick. His cheeks were rosy. His eyes sparkled. He ran and played and laughed just like before. But something was different about him, too. He was kinder now, gentler. When Emma fell and scraped her knee, he sat with her and held her hand until she stopped crying. When he saw a homeless person on the street, he asked his parents if they could help. He remembered what it felt like to be helpless. And he never wanted anyone else to feel that way. "Dad," Oliver said one evening at dinner, "can we try to find Grace? I want to say thank you properly." Mr. Harrison had hired private investigators to search for the mysterious girl. They had looked everywhere, shown her description to thousands of people, searched homeless shelters and churches and community centers. But it was like Grace had never existed. No one had ever seen her before that day in the hospital, and no one had seen her since. "I don't think we're meant to find her," Mr. Harrison said gently. "I think she came to help us, and then she went to help someone else." "Like an angel?" Emma asked, her eyes wide. Mrs. Harrison smiled. "Maybe, or maybe just a very special person." "I hope she knows how grateful we are," Oliver said quietly. "I think she does," his mother replied. The months passed, and Grace House began to take shape. It rose from the ground like a dream becoming real, all glass and steel and hope. Mr. Harrison visited the construction site every single day. He wanted to make sure every detail was perfect. He installed fountains in the courtyards because he remembered how water had saved his son. He made sure every room had big windows so sick children could see the sky. He hired the kindest doctors and nurses, people who believed that healing required more than just medicine. On the day Grace House opened its doors, hundreds of people came to the ceremony. News reporters were there with cameras. Important people in fancy suits gave speeches. But Mr. Harrison only cared about one thing. "This hospital is built on a promise," he said into the microphone, his voice carrying across the crowd. "A year ago, my son was dying. The best doctors in the world couldn't save him. But a barefoot girl with a brass cup and a heart full of faith did what medicine couldn't do. She asked for nothing in return except one thing, that we help other children. This hospital is how we keep that promise." The crowd clapped, but many people cried too. They had heard the story of Oliver's miracle, and some of them didn't believe it. But it didn't matter whether they believed or not. The hospital was real. The free treatment was real. And the children who would be saved here would be real. The first patient admitted to Grace House was a little girl named Maria. She had the same heart problem Oliver had suffered from. Her parents were poor and had been turned away from other hospitals because they couldn't pay. "We'll take care of her," Dr. Chen said. She had left her old hospital to work at Grace House, unable to forget the miracles she had witnessed. "And we won't charge you a single penny." Maria's mother cried with relief and gratitude. That night, after the opening celebration ended and everyone went home, Mr. Harrison did something he did every single evening. He filled a brass cup with water and poured it on the ground at the hospital's entrance, right where a small garden grew. "Thank you, Grace," he whispered, "wherever you are." It became a tradition. Every night at sunset, someone from the Harrison family would come to Grace House and pour water from a brass cup onto the garden. Oliver did it sometimes. Emma did it. Mrs. Harrison did it. They never missed a single day. The garden grew thick and beautiful, with flowers that bloomed even in winter. People said it was the most beautiful garden in the entire city. They said it felt peaceful there, like a thin place where heaven and earth touched. Over the years, Grace House saved thousands of children. Kids who would have died without treatment got the medicine and surgery they needed. Families who had lost hope found it again. The hospital became famous not just for its excellent care, but for the love that seemed to fill every hallway. Oliver grew up strong and healthy. He went to college and studied medicine because he wanted to understand the miracle that had saved him. He wanted to help other people the way Grace had helped him. "I'll never forget her," he told his parents on the day he graduated from medical school. "That girl taught me that some things can't be explained, only experienced. Some things just require faith." Emma became a nurse and worked at Grace House. She loved taking care of sick children, remembering how scared she had been when her own brother was dying. Mr. Harrison's business empire continued to grow, but he was different now. He gave away more money than he kept. He built schools and community centers. He helped the homeless and the hungry. Every decision he made, he asked himself, what would Grace want me to do? Mrs. Harrison started a foundation that provided cups of clean water to villages around the world that didn't have safe drinking water. She called it the Grace Water Foundation. "Water saved my son," she explained. "Now it can save others." Years and years passed. Oliver became Dr. Harrison, one of the best pediatric heart specialists in the country. He worked at Grace House and saved countless children with a combination of medical skill and something else, something the other doctors noticed but couldn't quite name. Faith, maybe, or love, or the memory of a barefoot girl who had taught him that miracles were possible. On the 10th anniversary of Grace House, now an old man with gray hair but young eyes, Mr. Harrison stood in the hospital's main lobby. Thousands of children had been treated here. Hundreds of lives had been saved. And it all started with one impossible moment, when faith proved stronger than death. A young mother approached him, holding the hand of a healthy little boy. "Mr. Harrison," she said, tears in her eyes, "I wanted to thank you. My son had cancer. The doctors here saved him. We couldn't have afforded treatment anywhere else." Mr. Harrison knelt down to the boy's level. "I'm so glad you're healthy. But you don't need to thank me. Thank a girl named Grace, who taught me that the best way to use money is to help people." "Was she the girl from the miracle story?" the mother asked. "Yes," Mr. Harrison said, standing up slowly, his old knees creaking. "Though I sometimes wonder if she was really a girl at all." "What do you mean?" Mr. Harrison smiled mysteriously. "I spent years trying to find her. No birth records, no family, no history. It's like she appeared just for that one moment, saved my son, and then returned to wherever angels come from." "Do you really think she was an angel? Does it matter?" Mr. Harrison asked gently. "Angel or human, she taught me the most important lesson of my life. That faith, when mixed with love, can move mountains. Or in my case, restart a dying heart." That evening, as the sun set over the city, the entire Harrison family gathered at the hospital's entrance garden. Oliver was there with his own children now. Emma was there with her husband. Mrs. Harrison, older but still beautiful, held her husband's wrinkled hand. Together, they poured water from the brass cup onto the garden. It was the same cup Oliver had bought years ago to replace the one Grace had carried, keeping the tradition alive. "Do you think she's watching?" Little Emma, now Oliver's 7-year-old daughter and named after her grandmother, asked. "I think so," Oliver said, lifting his daughter onto his shoulders. "I think she sees every child we save here, and I think it makes her smile." The flowers in the garden seemed to glow in the sunset light. Somewhere in the hospital behind them, a child laughed. Another one took their first steps after surgery. Another one opened their eyes after a long sleep, just like Oliver had done so many years ago. The brass cup caught the last rays of sun, gleaming like gold, like hope, like faith made visible. And in that moment, in that garden, in that hospital built on a promise, to a barefoot girl who might have been an angel, everyone felt what Oliver had felt that day in his hospital bed when he opened his eyes. They felt grace. The story of the Harrison family and Grace House reminds us all that the most powerful things in life can't be bought or measured. Love is stronger than fear. Faith is stronger than doubt. And sometimes when we need it most, grace arrives in the form we least expect, barefoot, carrying nothing but a brass cup and an unshakable belief in miracles. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe. We love hearing from you. So let us know in the comments where you're watching from and what this story meant to you. Your support helps us share more stories of hope and faith with people all around the world. Thank you for being part of our community.